Good morning. I'm on a little bit early to check my connection and to make sure that you can see what I'm seeing this time. If you're here early with me, just go ahead and type something in. I set it up now that I believe I can see your comments and talk to you live. I'll start painting at 10 o'clock, but in the meantime, I would love to hear who's here or see who's here and see if you have any questions. Um, I've noticed that you can, depending on how you're watching this, if you're watching this on an iPad or your computer, you get a slightly different view. So I'm going to try to adjust the canvas and everything to show you the best view on both screens. So we're going to be painting a little chick today. I thought it was appropriate since Easter's coming up. It isn't the same chick that you saw on the announcement because I don't want to paint the same thing twice anymore. I used to do that all the time, and then I'd rather do new things. So I'm going to talk to you at 10 o'clock. I'll talk to you about how I start the painting. You're seeing a photo of my photo reference. We were at the farm show and I got to take pictures of chicks. It shows really yellow because their heat lamp was very yellow. So I'm going to adjust the color as I'm painting. Looks like I have some early people on. Let's see. Hi, Karen. Can you hear me? I can hear myself. So, hi, Becky. Oh, Becky, I saw your little baby chicks that you posted. Oh my God, I'm so jealous. I'm gonna have to come visit you. You have peacocks and chicks. What can I say? Hi, Leslie. Hi, Linda. Oh, I hope this, wait, let me turn my sound off so that you're not listening to, there we go. Hi, Suzanne. Hi, Sherry. All right, so let me just give you a little heads up here. I think I have everything set so that you can all see it. I can see what you're saying. And we have the most horrific windstorm going on right now. If you lose power or if I lose power, I apologize ahead of time. And if it totally disrupts the video, I'll either tape it or I'll do it again tomorrow. I'll see. Let's just keep our fingers crossed that we don't lose any power today. Oh my gosh, my cousin Antonella's here from Italy. Ciao, Antonella. Hi, Roxanne. It's so good to see you here. Oh, you guys are, it's great. You're here so early. I hope you're not having the same kind of wind we are. Hi, Sharon. Good to see you. Or I don't see you, but you know what I mean. So let me know if you can hear me. Someone said earlier that they couldn't hear me. Make sure that your sound is turned on. I could hear myself before I turned it off so that you didn't hear an echo. There's a slight delay. So excited that you're all here. I'm going to start painting in 4 minutes so that people who were planning on 10 o'clock don't miss anything. You can see I pre-mixed some colors and you can actually see my palette this time. I'm painting a little painting. It's just about 6 by 8. It's almost the same size as the photo that I printed out on my computer. That was not intentional. It just happened that way. Hi, Arlene. Nice to see you. Sharon, yes, you did meet my cousin. She came to that day that we were at the winery. Oh, and Roberto's here too. So say hi to Roberto, Sharon, or anybody who went with me to Italy. I'm so excited that my Italian friends are here also watching. Hi, Barbara Christina. Oh, and you can hear me. Wonderful. Thank you. Hi, Dennis. Nice to see you. I'm excited because I think I have all the technology down. Well, I'm going to not say that because, as soon as I say something like that, it's going to, we're going to have something pop up. Hi, Jilene, Karen. I'm so glad to see you guys. Wonderful. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let me, am I at 10 yet? No, 3 minutes. I'm going to talk a little bit before we start. Um, I'm, if you don't know me, my name's Lena Ferrara. I'm an artist who lives in central Pennsylvania. I teach classes locally. And since we have been in lockdown here, I haven't had a chance to see anyone. So I'm going to just do a few Facebook Live demos every Friday at 10 o'clock. That's my goal. I already have next week's planned. We're going to be painting spring flowers, spring daffodils. I'm going to do something a little bit different next time, but I won't tell you about that till later. So I have a little photo of the spring peep. Well, it wasn't spring peep because I got it. I took this photo at the farm show in January. We have a farm show every year in Harrisburg, and I love to go because it's, I used to be a dairy farmer, so I get to go and smell the cows and look at the pigs and horses and chicks. And the photo is very yellow because the grow light was, or the heating lamp that was on the chicks was very yellow. So I'm going to adjust that for um, the color for you guys because it's not going to make a very pretty painting if it's just yellow like this. So I'm going to show you from start to finish what my procedure is. And it's a small painting, so we should get it done pretty well. Robin says she can hear. That's great. Good. Jillian, hi. Debbie. Hi, Debbie. It's nice to see you here. Let's get started. So I'm starting off with a blank canvas. It's a 6x8 and it's painted already, but I just put a little background color on it. And I have a little violet, just a dull sort of a light purple that I put on here. And my reasoning is there's two reasons that I do that. One is that because the canvas is white, if you don't cover the entire surface with paint and you have little tiny pieces of canvas showing through, your painting doesn't look finished. So to avoid that, I start off with a color most times because I don't always I put some thick paint on, but I also have some thin paint on there also. So so that's why it's purple. That and purple is the complement of yellow. So a little bit of that purple is going to show through and affect the yellow on top and peak. You'll have little violet things poking through. So I like that. So let's talk a little bit about this. So this is how I start. Totally blank canvas. I'm going to draw on here with paint, but you'll be surprised at how little I actually draw. So let's talk about this photo first. If you have any questions, type them in and let me know where you're from. That'd be fun too. So I want to look at this little chick, and the most important thing to me is obviously how am I going to arrange him on my canvas. I want to give myself guidelines, so that's what I'll do for you. But I want to check the orientation of the body and the head before I do anything on the canvas. So if you look at my brush, you can see that he is not straight up and down. he's got an angle, and I want to make sure I capture that angle for the bulk of his body. Then I want to also check, okay, so his feet are they centered in his body? Not really. They're sort of off a little bit. So he's not quite divided in half. And then when I'm checking orientation, like I check the orientation of the body, but I also want to check the orientation of the beak and the head. So this is going to be important in a minute. Well, and I'll show you. If you don't get certain things angled correctly and the distance correct on some of the objects, especially when you're painting animals, it's going to throw the whole thing off. So the other thing I want you to see is, look, if I divide this chick's head in half, the eye and the beak are in the front half of it. If I put the eye back here, he's just going to look weird, you know. So I want to make sure that I think about those things, and I want to think about where the beak lies, you know, what angle the beak and the eye are in. Okay, so I'm going to push this off. If you're on a computer, you probably still see my photo, and if you're on an iPad, you might not see the whole thing. So let's see what we can do here. All right, I'm using the colors I use the same colors almost every time I paint. So I have titanium white, I have yellow, cad yellow, medium, yellow ochre, cad red, transparent red oxide, alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue. Sometimes I'll add a color if there's, for convenience, if I'm doing a lot of greens, I'll add some greens. Today I didn't. I'm going to put them in some grass, but I just mixed the green with yellow and blue. Then I pre-mixed a few colors just to speed things up, and I normally pre-mix anyway. So but I didn't pre-mix very much, you can see. I have some white mixed with a little yellow ochre. Then I have some white mixed with a little cad yellow, and I mixed some oranges, just yellow and red. This was a little bit too red, so I just took part of my pile and moved it up. I may still use this, I don't know. Then I also have mixed here a violet, alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue, and then add a little white to it. The same thing, I'll just ultramarine blue and white, and then I mixed myself a gray. So the gray was transparent red and ultramarine blue. I can write all this down in the comments for you at the end in case you're, oh my goodness. So while I'm here, hi, Robert Warren is here. It always floors me when I get people who are such wonderful painters. Why would you want to watch paint? But I'm so glad you're here, Robert. Hi, Rebecca, Jessica, Mary Arnold is here. Wonderful. Leslie, if I missed you, I apologize. Tom Jones is here. Okay. If any of you have any questions, please type it in. If I missed the comment, I will definitely go back and check it to make sure that I answered all your questions. If you just joined me, my name's Lena Ferrara. I live in Central Pennsylvania. I teach art classes locally, and I have taught internationally too. But if you want to know all that stuff, you can just go over to my website and look at that, read that stuff about me. It's www.lena-ferrara.com. Back to my palette. So I'm painting on a piece of glass that was painted gray in the back. It just helps to judge my colors and my values a little bit better. You'll also see that I have little dabs of white around my palette, and that's just so that when I'm brush mixing for this little guy, that I don't get my big pile of white dirty. Sometimes when you're going fast and you're in the flow, you don't think about cleaning off your palette knife and all of that. So to keep my paint relatively clean when I need to go back to it, I'm just adding a few dabs of white here and there. All right, so let's talk about this little guy again. I need to give myself some guidelines. I'm going to use a smaller brush. That's a little too big right now. So I'm just going to pick up a little of this. Well, maybe you won't see it. Let's get a little darker lavender. And I'm also using some walnut oil. I have walnut oil in a little container here to thin down my paint if I need to. And I just want to thin it down for the drawing part, really. I want to give myself parameters. So I know that his head is not going to go any further than that. And I think his feet probably right around there. If you saw what I did, well, let me do it again. I want to decide, how, if I divide him in half, where, where things lay. So his feet are a little bit off centered. So I want to make sure that I have more space on the left side than I do on the right side for him. So I don't want him to look like he's crowded in the canvas. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of a stopping spot there, and a little bit, I can go over a little bit further on this side. Okay, so now I see if I divide it in half, I have or close to half, I've got a little more space here. So that's similar to what my chick looked like on the photograph. The other thing I want to check is my angle. Okay, so the orientation of his body is about, you know what, I'm not a math person, I'm not going to go there, but it's about like that. So I try to check that too, and I'm just going to draw myself a guideline for that. The other important thing I want to check is this, the orientation of his head. So the body's angled like that, but the head's angled at a more, a steeper angle. So, and I'll recheck that when I get to the head, but it's about like that. All right, so those are the starts. That now I have an idea. The other thing I can look at, and this is great for you who don't draw, or you might be decorative painters and are used to using patterns. Let's just give you a little kind of a lesson on how I do it. So if I divide the body in half, you can see that this is like a little, sort of like, looks like a cotton ball actually. All right, I can divide the body in half. And if I divide the body in half, I notice that the head is half of that half. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to you. So I don't want to, get him out of proportion. So this is how I decide how much space I can allot to each body part. Okay, so this is my space. If it's about half, then half of the half, or a quarter, is going to be head. So I'm just giving myself a rough guideline, and I can always adjust this. And I'm going to look at the angle. I'll see if I can get this photo a little closer for you who can see it. And I did say that depending on whether you're watching this on an iPad or a computer, that'll depend on how much of my setup you can see. So you may not be able to see everything. I apologize ahead of time. Also, we're having a huge windstorm right now. If you lose me, it's because my power went out, and I'll repost the video so that you can see it if you missed anything. So I'm going to give myself an idea. I already know that I put that 1 foot too far over, so just going to smear it so that I know that's not the right line. It should look like the chick is something to is stable, so you don't want him teetering. This looks pretty good to me. Maybe this curve is a little flatter, but I'll worry about it. I'll make those corrections. But already it looks like a chick, right? The proportions are pretty close. And then remember I talked, or no, you might not remember if you just joined me, but here's my head. So I want to check the angle of the head, and then I also want to divide that little head in half and see where the eye and the beak sit in relationship to other things. So it's all in front of this halfway mark. So if I give myself another just a little sketched line there so that I can give myself a guide to where to put the eye. There's that eye. I can put it here in the front part of that head. And then the angle tells me where the beak is. So this is just there. So I know it doesn't look like anything right now, but it will. I can also check other things. I can say, okay, so if I measure how many eye widths are between the eye and the beak, it looks like there's 2. So I'll double check that. So I have 1. Oh, nope. I can cut it back a little bit or make it a little more distant. So let me get his beak out here. All right, there we go. That's really all I do to start. So now I can go back in and okay, let me say this. For a small painting, that's what I would do to start. The next, let me check to see if we have, hey, hi Pamela from New Jersey. Hi Elizabeth from Brazil. Oh wow, this is great. I'm so excited that you're all here. Yay. Hi Pamela, hi Karen, hi Dolores, and I'm not gonna say your name right. I apologize. Guerra. Wonderful I'm so happy you're here. So I'm just talking about my little sketch. If you just joined me, I started off with a blank canvas and then I'm just adding some guidelines for myself. If I was doing a huge painting, I would probably be a little more deliberate. I might grid it. I might, give myself more guidelines than what you see right now. But this is just a small little fun chick that we're painting here. I did go through my colors. I will go through it again for you later on, and I'll also put a list of the colors in the comments if you go back to see the video again. So I'm looking at my photo reference here, and I want to pick out the dark values. Obviously, the darkest thing on here is the eye, but there's some dark values around the head, or underneath the wing here, and in the lower body. One of the reasons I chose this photo is because of the pretty light that's around. You can see a definite light and shadow pattern. There's a nice light along the edge of his head and upper part of his body too. So that was the reason for this particular photo. So I have a light area and a shadow area, and I want to get that established right away. I'm using the lavender that I mixed for the shadow area. I'm not worried about all of these lines that are around here. That might be too dark. It probably is. Let me lighten that up a little. With just picking up a little bit of white, you can see, I think you can see my palette. And I'm mixing a little bit of white into this color. And I just want to get established where the darker values are. And then I'll switch to another color. But I want to make sure I have some complementary color in here too, and it's not just all yellow. Underneath his neck is a little bit of shadow there. In the front of his eye, there's a little bit of shadow also, so I'll get that on. I have my paper towels cut into little squares, and then I can wipe my brush off. I grab it by the ferrule and pull straight. I see so many people doing this with their brush, and that really ruins the bristles. So I don't want to start you off with any, or I don't want you to get into any bad habits. So there's that. I'm going to go straight into my yellow ochre now and get some more of these shadow areas on. And if you see, I'm already establishing the fluffy texture just by my brush strokes, by the way I'm going back and forth. And that yellow ochre might be, I'm not sure if it's too bright or not. I can always dull it. As I'm going into the violet, do you see how that tones down that color a little bit? So I can go back in and pick up some more if I want to tone it down a little. I think I will. And the reason that works is because, you know, yellow ochre, yellow and violet are complements. And if you mix them together, you get gray. And if you put them side by side, you get a really pretty, almost like a color vibration. So it's very effective to use complements in your painting. All right, so right around his head, this is all going to be rather dark also. And I say rather dark, but the darkest thing on his face is the eye. So everything else is, I am exaggerating the value range a little bit so that I get a better painting. There's a little bit of a crease here above his beak, like it almost shows you how his head is divided in half. I like that. All right, let me pick up a little bit of oil since if you hear that scratchy sound, I'd either have not enough paint or not enough oil on my brush. So you do have to be a little bit careful when you're using complements in your painting that you don't get everything all muddy. There's a little dark right here too. So I'm going to pick up a little yellow ochre. And I'm just placing all of the darker values so that I want to establish, now I can correct some shapes too, because that's going to be light later. I might be getting myself into trouble here. So let me wipe this out. There we go. I don't want to have my dark underneath my light because then my color will be muddy. Let's see. There's a little bit darker here. I see a little bit of a lighter glow over there, so I'm going to leave that empty for now. There we go. And before I go too far, I do want to get that eye in. So I started off with just the violet, but his eye's really black. So I have a black here that I mixed with transparent red and ultramarine blue. And I want to fill in that eye shape, which is sort of, it's like it's an oval. It's not completely round. And his eyes, they're so cute. You can't see a highlight in the eye on the photograph, but I'm going to put one in anyway. So if the light in my photo is coming from the right, so I'm going to put that highlight right on the right side, on the upper right. Let's hope it sticks. Let me get enough paint on my liner brush. There we go. It's going to give it a little bit of a light there. I don't know if you can see that or not. And then opposite that light, I want to give it a little bit of a, almost like something that passes through. If you paint anything translucent like grapes or eyes, if the light is hitting it on the upper right, there's going to be a little bit of light that passes through on the lower left, or, you know, vice versa, depending on where your light is coming through from. If it's coming from the right, it's upper right, lower left, and if it's coming from the left, it's upper left, lower right. Okay, so I've got that in there now. Let's get some prettier colors on here. I'm gonna clean my brush, make sure I've got a lot of that other paint out of there. And I'm going to start off with the yellow ochre and white. I don't want to go straight into my brighter colors, but I'm just looking really for value change right now, and then I can go ahead and, so I saw some light around his head. Whoops. I'm saving my brighter colors for, you know, my POW at the end. If I put bright colors everywhere, then there's no way for me to get interest, you know, in more interest in my painting. I see that right here I should have had a little bit more yellow ochre or a duller, darker color, so I'm just going to place that right now. Okay, so I've got that. On the side where the light is, I want to go with a brighter, lighter value. So that's when I'll use my cad yellow and white. And I'm just going to put this color where it looks like it's the lightest and brightest. And then I'll fill in with a darker value. That would be a darker value there. And I'm just, how am I getting this? I'm looking at my photo reference, and I'm exaggerating my photo reference just a little bit because for drama. Okay, so that's, I've established my darkest darks, almost my lightest lights, but not quite. Right, okay, so if that's that little divider, on the other side of that, there's a little bit of light. This area in here is not quite as dark as this and not quite as light as that. So now I can fill that in. Now, I don't always paint like this if I'm doing something bigger. If I'm doing something bigger, I'm a lot more controlled. I mix a larger range of colors. But for something that's, small and fun, then I just want to be more immediate about it and go right into some colors. What I did here was mix between my light value and my yellow ochre, which is a dark value, relatively dark value. So I'm just going to, and I'm patting, and my brush is sort of moving around in different directions. And then I'll get all of these colors in here, and then I'll adjust. Meaning I'll look to see if my light's light enough, or if I missed a dark value. I'm not actually blending yet. I'm just placing my colors. So I'm going to just going to keep checking my photo reference and making sure that I'm not putting something in that's going to get me into trouble later. I want to make sure that stays dark around his eyes. So I'm not going to go in there. So I'm filling in any gaps. This is a lighter area. You can still see my guidelines, but I'm not worried about that. I'll get rid of them as I go into the background. And I want to get some legs started in here. They're orangey. And they're pretty substantial. The feet aren't as tiny as you'd first think. So I'm just gonna draw in, and those feet are huge. I mean, if you've ever looked at chick feet or chicken feet, it's quite surprising. They're not very pretty, but I guess they don't have to be. The color's pretty, it's orange. And I'm just putting in the mid value of this, of the foot. I can't see the whole foot because it's, there's some, shavings there, but we'll put some grass over that. And I can get a dark value in here. Again, I'm looking at my photo reference, and and I'm using transparent red oxide. You can also use burnt sienna. I just really like transparent red oxide. I'm going to get these feet in here, a little bit of shadow on the feet, and then I'm going to check to see if you have any questions. Now I am going to blend that, but barely. Not blending it too much. There. So let's see. Hi, Judy. Hi, Leslie. Hi, Joanne. Hi, Janice. It's so happy that you're all here. Okay, so now I can start to blend. I didn't really do, a whole lot of painting. I mean, it's all about looking for the shapes and the value. If you can find that, then your paintings they're fun for you to paint, and they're also they're more expressive. It's just it's easy. I know it says, oh, you make it look easy, but it really isn't hard. If you're just look for the shapes and look for the value changes. Now all I'm doing, I'm blending, but my brush, I'm just tapping it sort of like little X's. I want to keep it fluffy. If it was something that needed to be smooth, like the side, a pot or metal, then I'd be more careful about how I blended. But I want to keep this looking you know, fluffy. Chicks are light and fluffy, and the little bit of, I'll keep wiping my brush every maybe 5 or 6 strokes, but having the little variations in values that you get when you know, brush is dancing around there, that's what really gives you that effect that you're looking at chick fluff and not, you know, something else, something smooth. And I want to keep making sure that I blend, it's not blend, but wipe my brush. If I see that I'm tracking a color where, you know, I don't want it, then I'll pick up the paper towel and start blending. I'm sorry, start wiping. Okay, now I did exaggerate, and I think I told you that before, but I exaggerate my values here from what I'm seeing in the actual photograph to make a more dramatic painting. Now, as I get to the lighter values, I'm sort of, I want to be more, a little bit softer with the pressure on my brush because I don't want to, you know, to muddy up that color. I could be changing my brush, but if it was something, you know, where if it was more important, you know, something that was less forgiving, that, oops, I got into his eye, I'll go back and fix that. Then I'd be, you know, switching between a light brush and a dark value brush, at least trying to, but. And let me go fix his eye. I'm resting my arm on the edge of the table there. Okay, good. Let's get a little bit of orange in that beak now. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush to do that. And I have, I'm going to start off with that same color I used on his feet, or her feet. And I already have violet down there, so this isn't going to look like a light value. It's going to be toned down and more of a mid-value color. So a little bit of a curve there. I'll get that with the light value. Oh, the other thing, I'm sort of off a little bit on this little divider here. So that actually, if I look at the photograph, that is right above the beak. So let me go back in. Let me fix that. Let me get rid of that. And I'm going to place it again with just my yellow ochre. So it's right about here. So it's really forgiving. I mean, if you make a mistake, you just go back and change it. Right, let me get some light on his beak so that you can see that. And I'm going to go in with, I have orange on my brush, and then I just picked up a little bit of yellow. And there's really not a lot of light on the beak. It's just the very edge. And I'll blend it in a little. I'm going to put a brighter orange on there. And there's too much on that side, but I'll fix that with the feathers. Let's get a little bit brighter orange on here. And let me go back in. It's actually quite light on the other side of his beak, so I may have to add some white here. We'll see. I want to soften this in so it doesn't look like I'm dividing his head in half. I think I'd like to lighten up the top of his head just a little bit more. And I think it looks a little flat, so I want to round it up a little also before I put background color in there. And then I want to decide also, I know this isn't quite right, but I think I'm going to have to lift a little color out in order to get that light to stick. So Let's see, I have my little handy dandy tool here that is just a rubber, it's rubber on a stick, but you know, they sell them, it's in different shapes, different sizes, and it's really, really very useful. So I see some brighter color right in here, the tip, and it's hard for me to get that bright to stick at this stage because I have paint under it. So I'm just removing it, a little bit of that with that tool. Let me grab some orange, brighter orange. Just replace that. I can also wait back and reinforce it, and I probably will. I hardly ever finish a painting in one sitting. Unless it's a plein air, you know, painting, and I don't often go back to those. But then sometimes I just use those as reference for a bigger painting. So there I'm trying to lighten that up again. And I'm looking at the reference, and the beak is darker than the little fluff around it. So I'm going to pick up a lighter version. Actually, I'm just going to go into some white. See if I can get that to show up against there. Nope. I keep it, that color is just blending in, so there we go. Making his beak a little bit darker than the color around him. Oh, wow. Okay, so let's get some background in now, because that's going to help us to see, you know, where we need more highlights and shadows. I think I'd like to put him in some grass. This is for you, Becky, because you had the question about the grass. And I don't want to divide the canvas in half. So I know that the grass is going to have to either come up here or be down here. And I'd rather paint grass today than sky. It could be anything back here. I mean, you could just leave it on a you know, a purple background. Let's see. Let me just, all right, I'll just give myself an arbitrary line here. The original photo reference that I'm using was, you know, there's a bunch of chicks in some wood shavings. It's not the most interesting. So, and it's such a beautiful spring day that I think I just want to paint grass. So I'm gonna, let me give you something you can see here. I'm just gonna go back to my violet again. And that's where I think I'm gonna have the grass stop. Let's put in some sky. So I want to be deliberate about this. I don't want the sky to be so light that it washes this out. I do want it to be a little bit darker. So maybe instead of sky, I'll put in a tree line back here. Let's think about it. I'm gonna, whoops, sorry. I tried to get all my brushes on one side so that you don't have to look at my arm interrupting your view. Let's start a little sky color at the top. I'm just using ultramarine blue and white. And I'm letting some of that violet peek through from my underpainting. And I'm gonna let me just bring it down about halfway here of my this part, halfway. Oh, too dark. I don't want the light against the light. Maybe I could put in a mountain range. Oh, let's try, well, I don't want to get too hokey. Let me just put in some these will be trees, but I'm starting them off with a toned down version of the background, which was just a violet made with alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. Just want to get that up around his face and his head. And this is going to help me decide you know, what value I run around his head so that he shows up. If I get a darker value around his head, then it's gonna be a little bit more dramatic. This is probably not gonna be the color that it ends up, but, and if this was a bigger painting, I would have figured this all out ahead of time. I would have done a no-tan, which is just a value sketch. These are gonna be green trees, but right now I'm putting them in with violet. And I'm doing that because I know that this way I don't have to necessarily tone down the green I'm using. It'll get toned down when I add it over the violet. All right, so I have something behind him. So thinking about it the same way, I'm going to have darker grass. Normally you want more contrast here in the foreground, because otherwise it's going to look like I've painted a green wall. But having said that, you also you're looking to equalize the values in the distance. So if I have a medium or dark value down back here, I'm going to have a medium or dark value right in here and get lighter as I come forward. And then I'll add a few darker grasses. I'm just trying to see if I like that or not. I can also, if I need to fix something, you know, the shape here, I can use this darker color to come in a little bit closer and, you know, make a little bit of an adjustment on his head if I want to. And also, can you see that it's setting up a beautiful glow here? I talked a little bit about this in the beginning, that when you use complementary colors and you use them together, like you mix them together, you get a dull toned down color. But if you place them next to each other, they cause the complement to look brighter. And this is a, you know, a toned down violet. I'm not using a really bright violet back there. I'm going to take a minute and check, see if anybody has questions. Becky says yay because I'm doing grass. Hi Mary, hi Trina, hi Bob. If you're new, if you've just joined me, my name's Lena Ferrara. I live in Central Pennsylvania. I am a contemporary realist painter. I have a website you can go to check out if you're interested in reading more about me. It's www.lenaferrara.com. Today we're painting a spring chick. And I'm just getting that background in. So let's get a nice dark green. I'm sort of wishing I had put out my sap green because it's so much faster than mixing. But ultramarine blue and yellow in varying proportions will give you a beautiful green. So I'm going to get a dark, rather dark green. I'm going to see what it looks like on top of my purple. I want it lighter than that, I think. I'm going to add a little bit of white to the color. And a little bit of blue, because I want this to sit back. I don't want it to be too bright. Let's make it, well, I don't want it to be all one value either, so I'm going to pick up a little bit more white. Normally I wouldn't use white with the green because it makes it very cold, but I don't want it to be too warm back here, so let's see what that does. And I don't want to be too light against my chick, so I'm going to have to smack my hand. Painting, the difficult thing about painting is that you have to think and at the same time, you know, as your brush is moving. I'm going to leave a lot of that purple showing through just because I like it. I want it to be lighter at the top of the trees because, again, I don't want to set up a big value change between my sky and my trees. If you can if you can equalize the values, then something looks further away. if you have a lot of contrast, then something's going to look like it's closer. And I also don't want to give a halo around my bird. So let me change the shape of this background a little bit so that it doesn't look like I'm, following the outline, which I am. Okay, get a little bit of, I'll play more there if I want to later. I'm just going to move a little further forward. You can even see here that this area looks closer to you than this area because I have more intense color over here. So I'll probably change that a little bit. Let me pick up a little bit of lavender and lighten those trees a little. All right. All right, so for the grass. Now, as we're going to go from the back to the foreground, and my brush strokes are going to change from the grass back here to the grass in the front. Back here, in the distance, you're really not going to see you're not going to see any grass blades. If you look outside, and you look at somebody's lawn across the street, you don't see the individual blades. Once you get closer to yourself, then you see more individual grass blades. So my strokes back here are going to be flatter, and then they're going to gradually change to, okay, so back here they'd be more like this. As I come forward, they're going to just start to have this motion, and up here my strokes are going to be longer, and my color is going to change also. So let me show you that. So I already said that I want it a little bit darker back here, and we're going to get a little lighter as we come forward. So let's see how, no, that's too bright. So I'm going to mix a little of my violet into that green. I want it to be dull, and I think I need it to be a little lighter. There we go. All right, so smoother strokes in the background. And the color is quite similar to the tree line, but I can go back and darken the base of the tree line so it shows up a little bit more. If I want to, let's see. I'm going to fill in a little bit more before I change my brush direction. And I'm going to be a little bit more careful around my chick. Okay, so I'm going to change my color to a lighter green, a mid-value green now, and it's a little bit brighter. And I'm also changing the direction of my strokes. If you can see, there's a little bit of purple showing through. I'm not going to get rid of that yet. I may kind of like it. So here I'm going with a little bit short but vertical stroke. And I'll come back with a different value of green too when I get a little further up here. I'm going to thin out my paint just a hair. Get a little further up. I think until about here is when I'll change. So the other reason for starting in the back and coming forward is I had other colors in my brush. I had violet in my brush, and that is going to dull down my green. As I come forward, every time I pick up that color, that green, I have less of the violet in my brush, so it's gradually getting more intense. The color is not as neutralized. Now I'm going to get a little bit lighter. So I'm mixing between my medium and light value green that I had pre-mixed. And I'm just using alizarin, I'm sorry, that's my green. Yellow and blue, ultramarine blue and cad yellow. So if I was doing a big painting, I would use more, I'd have pre-mixed different warm greens and cool greens. I probably would have used some Viridian and sap green, but this is small painting. I will go back maybe and adjust. So the bird is on top of the grass, so that when I'm coming back, when I go back in, I want to make sure that I take that the fluffy feathers out over the grass area. I don't want it to look like he's, you know, embedded in the grass or something. Okay, as I come forward, let me be a little careful between her legs, his or her legs. You already can see that there's a sense of distance here because the color is much duller, and then it's getting much brighter as I come forward. Now I'm going to wipe my brush and come in with a nice light springy green, and my strokes are going to be longer. I do want to be careful around the legs so that I don't have to go back in and repaint those, but it's not a disaster if I do. And if for some reason the color isn't sticking where you want it, then just let it dry and go back and, you know, fix that little bit. I want to keep getting lighter and brighter as I come forward. So you'll see that I have it looks like I have a lot of grass here, and I didn't really do individual grass blades. I will do a few up front for you, but I don't need to do it back there because you wouldn't see it. Okay, let me lighten up my green as I come forward between its toes. I'll take my liner brush at the very end and bring a few blades up over her feet so it doesn't look like, you know, she's just sitting there. And oh, too yellow. Go back to the green. There we go. I'm going to check for a few. Does anybody have any questions? Hi Rosalie. Hi Lori. If you're just joining me, I'm going to leave the replay up for a few weeks so you can go back and see the whole thing. If you want to make sure that you don't miss any of my future Facebook Lives, I invite you to join my newsletter, and my newsletter is at lenaferrara.com. You can just go hit the newsletter link. If you have any questions at all, at any point that you're watching this later, or you can email me. Yeah, you could email me, or you could just put a comment on Facebook underneath the video, and I will go back and check and make sure that I get all those comments. So I have, I want to check my transitions now before I go back to put detail in the grass, and if I want to put any more detail in the chick. I don't know if I do or not. I do need to get closer to the chick so this doesn't look like there's a halo around it. And do you see I've gotten rid of my purple guidelines? They're almost all gone. Right in here. I think I'll go back with some fluff though from the chick there. I want to make sure that I don't have an obvious stop and start when I went between my values, and the only place I'm seeing maybe a little bit here, so I'm just going to fuzz that up a little bit. And right in here, I want to pull some of the dark into the very light grass that I have. Okay. So I'll get a little bit more grass growing here. Then I'm going to switch brushes and go back into the chick and make sure that I have a lot of the fluff out over. And I also want to make sure that my light source is consistent, because I have a beautiful glow coming up from the back of that chick. There might be some of that if the sun direction, I might need to put a little bit more of that in here somewhere. I want the chick to look like it's part of the background and not separate from it. And I also need to put a little bit of shadow, a little bit of darker green there. So I'm going to take my darker green, which was just, ultramarine blue and yellow. I added a little bit more ultramarine blue to darken it up. And let's make it dark right under here. Again, if he's out in the sunlight and there's the light's coming from the upper right, he'd be casting a shadow down here. And I want to make sure I get dark under his feet so that it looks like, he's grounded, not floating in the air. Darken this a little bit more too. All right, so now I can go back in and just do a little bit of detail work. I'm going to grab my liner brush. I'm going to thin down my paint just a hair because I have, well, whenever you're working with a liner brush, you need to thin the paint down so that it flows off the brush. And I'm going back into my darker green, and I'm going to add a few blades of grass. And then I'll go back and soften it because I don't want to have the bottom edges, showing like that. But I don't want to get too stiff down here. So I'm going to see what falls off my brush, and then I will adjust. I do want to have some dark value down there that gives you the impression that there are darker areas in the grass, a little more detail. Then I'd go back with some lighter values, or can go back with some lighter values also. You're going to have to keep wiping and reloading because you're going with the dark value on top of light, and it's going to mix. And I can pull a couple blades of grass over the feet. And I want to go further down also. Let's go down all the way down to the bottom of the canvas and just pull up some. If I got too wild, I can go back and, knock them back. I can go back in with some lighter value too. And some darker. I could go even darker than this. This area is a little unnatural looking. So let me come back over with a lighter stroke. And I can thin it down that way. I don't want the bottoms of the grass to, I don't want you to see where I stopped and started. So I'm just going to tap over that and blend that a little bit. And you see that that might be too long, but I'll wait and decide. All right, let me jump back to the chick and take care of some of these edges. So down here, I want it to remain darker. I'm going to go back into my yellow ochre and just connect those feet. Go over so it doesn't look like he's, got disembodied legs. I like that, so I'm not going to change anything there. And I like this light edge also. So I think I'm not, well, maybe I don't want to have it, I don't want to have it uninterrupted. So let me go back and just give it a little bit of a darker value right over there so it doesn't look like he's outlined. And let's see what else. I'd like to give the feet a little bit of a highlight, although it is underneath and in the shadow, so I don't want to go overboard. I'm going to just pick up a little lighter orange, and let's just see if I can get a little bit more dimension there. It's more about the dimension than showing a light source down there. Let's assume there'd be some light bouncing back from the grass, which means I could use a light green also. And I'm going to highlight that a little bit. Let me get a lighter version of orange. So the orange I have mixed, I'm just adding a little bit of white to that. And I'm going to rest my hand here so I have a little bit of make it a little steadier. Just see if I can get it. If I can't get it orange enough right now, I'll just come back when it dries in a day or two and just give it a little bit more. No, that didn't do it. I got darker instead of lighter. I'm going to go into some straight yellow and just see if I can lay it on the top. I'm just being very gentle. There we go. That's better. All right, I still have a flat head up here, so let me go and fix that. I threw my brush over here. So I want to go back into my lightest color. And now I have a duller color on my brush, and I really want that to be light and bright. So I'm going to dress my brush in the color, and then I'm going to just wipe it off because that's going to neutralize the paint that I have in my brush. Whoops. Sorry for the jiggling there. And now I can go back in here and gently lay that color on top. I don't want to push too hard because I don't want to disturb. I have some, you know, violet back of it or underneath it, so I don't want to mess that up. I don't want it to blend in. And now I can go back also and see where else would I want it. Do I want it lighter anywhere? I'm pretty happy with it actually. Yeah, I like it a lot. Well, I think I can't think of anything else. Oh, right. Right around the eye, I could clean that up a little bit. And I don't want it to be super light. So let's get that light off the brush. Go back here into some yellow, ochre, and white. Just want to clean up that edge around its eye. And then I can also reshape it if it looks, you know, flat or I think right here the transition could be a little softer, so I'm just patting gently to blend that together. And I think our spring chick is finished. So thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed this time that we had together. If you want to make sure that you don't miss any other videos, please go on over to my website, lena-ferrara.com, and sign up for the newsletter. Just click the newsletter tab and give me your email address, and I send out a reminder. I am going to also be doing something a little bit different next time. I'm going to give you the line drawing and the paint colors ahead of time in case you want to paint with me. So it was a pleasure being with you. I'm going to sign off. Hi Rosewitha. Hi Annette. Hi Vera. Hi Ron. If you missed it, the video is going to go back up on my Facebook page within 10 minutes, and you can watch it again. So I hope to see you again next week, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Facebook Live. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Happy Easter, happy Passover, or whatever you celebrate. Bye-bye.